the man, the myth, the legend, Herschel Gordon Lewis, the godfather of gore, the godfather of the splatter film, and, believe it or not, the godfather of the horror comedy. As in this film from 1967, titled The Gruesome Twosome. Really cool name for a film. Even if Herschel Gordon Lewis never made this film, and I heard this film called The Gruesome Twosome, I want to watch it. Totally 100%. Now, this was the first film that mixed horror, gore, and comedy. Oh, yeah. This is a classic, man. Oh, yeah, like the Maltese Falcon. Oh, yeah. This is the Maltese Falcon, the Casablanca, Citizen Kane of horror comedy films. You probably want to hear the synopsis of this one. Anybody familiar with Herschel Gordon Lewis probably have heard the name of this film, or have seen this film. Or if you're a collector from back in the day, probably owned this film from Something Weird Video via DVD, as Something Weird Video was the main distributor for all like Herschel Gordon Lewis classics. I mean, even in the film Juno, they had a copy of The Wizard of Gore, and they were watching The Wizard of Gore in the film. So, yes, Herschel Gordon Lewis is critically acclaimed, world-renowned. So here's the synopsis of The Gruesome Twosome. So Miss Pringle, she comes across as a very nice lady, very sweet lady. She has a little wig business. But how she acquires these wigs, something a little out of the ordinary. She has a son with severe developmental disabilities named Rodney, who lives with Mama. And Mama's always telling him, you be a good boy now, or a bad boy. But when you're a good boy and do good things for Mama, Mama gives you rewards, like telling you a story. See, how she acquires these wigs in this wig business is basically college co-eds come in seeking a room for rent because she has a big sign saying room for rent. They come in, she brings them to a little wig shop, and in the back, Rodney's waiting to slice their heads off. To slice their scalps off. Take all their hair off. And that's how Mrs. Pringle makes her wigs. Very unconventional way. I'm not sure if places today, wig shops today, make wigs that way. But, you know, if they do, they're keeping it hush-hush. So Kathy Baker, she's a co-ed, and she hears that some girl's gone missing. Possibly even dead. She doesn't know. So goes into sleuth mode and tries to find out if these girls are alive or dead. But when her friend goes missing, see, her friend didn't want to live in the fraternity house. She wanted to move on her own, get a place of her own. She happened upon Mrs. Pringle's house, and she told a couple people, even give the address of where Miss Pringle lives, that she was going there and inquire about a room for rent. But when she goes missing, and we know exactly what happens to her in all brutal, gruesome detail. I don't think brutal's a word. I just made it up. I'm going to keep it, though. See, we know what happens. But, of course, Kathy, who's sleuthing and trying to figure out where her friend went, she does a little investigating. So she goes to Mrs. Pringle's house and, she finds everything out, albeit the hard way. But she let her friends know where she was going, and her boyfriend, who's very annoyed by her sleuthing ways, now figures, well, she had a reason to play detective. Goes and finds her, and when they happen upon Mrs. Pringle's house, oh boy, mayhem awaits. But will they detect what happens, and will Miss Pringle and Rodney serve justice by jail, or maybe an insane asylum? Will they ever get caught? Will they escape? You'll have to find out by watching The Gruesome Twosome. Now, I know Arrow put out a single disc of this, but you can also see it from the Feast box, and I totally recommend getting this. It's so friggin' worth it. Loads and loads of entertainment to be had. The Gruesome Twosome isn't as humorous as you would like it to be, since it was the first horror comedy gore type film. But there are some scenes that were unintentionally hilarious, like when Kathy and her boyfriend were in the drive-in, and it shows clips of the movie they were watching. I was dying. It's basically a girl saying, Terrence, I love you. And all he is consumed is drinking beer and eating chips sloppily and eating fruit. It is absolutely friggin' hysterical. And even if you don't even want to watch this film, but then have a copy lying around, if you go to the scene at the drive-in, it's absolutely friggin' hysterical. Probably one of the most hysterical things in the whole film. And there's scenes that carry on for a little too long, like at the racetrack. You see the cars go around numerous amount of times, and they could have cut that in half. There were other scenes when Kathy was sleuthing. She took a little too long to get to what she wanted to do. And there were scenes of people's like, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do this. And they don't do it. That shit always cracks me up. And the acting was unintentionally bad. Especially the cop and the detective. Oh my god, some of the most wooden acting ever. The acting just didn't make sense. It's like these people had no direction. Like, the cop is... The detective is with the cop, and he's trying to solve the case, and he walks and goes, yeah, we're trying to find out what happened to this girl. It's so weird. It's so odd. Mrs. Pringle comes across really well. She comes across as sweet as pie, but very disturbing. So I think Elizabeth Davis did a really, really good job. And Chris Martel, he's been another Herschel Gordon Lewis film, 2000 Maniacs, if you will. He did good with what he had. He had to play someone with, severe developmental disabilities, and I think he did a pretty good job with that. Gretchen Wells, who played Kathy Baker, who was the sleuth trying to figure out what happened to these missing girls, she did a very admirable job. Although she seemed a lot older than they made her out to be, which was a little disturbing in and of itself. The gore scenes were phenomenal. And they run the gamut on everything. Like, he was scalping girls for the wig. So the first one, he scalped her head and then pulled her head out, and you see all the gory details. One woman, he chopped her head off for some reason. And another one, he just stuck a knife in her and just ripped her insides out. Her insides out, her liver. So that was quite disturbing. So those certain scenes were really gory to be gory, but they were really good gore. So the kill scenes were really good. But everything else, halfway decent film. Not bad at all. And it wasn't as funny as you would want it to be, being it was the first horror comedy, but there were scenes that were just unintentionally funny, like a lot of the acting, if you will. Overall, though, I don't think it overwhelmed its stay. I think there were scenes that did carry on a little too long, but not overly long as to be like, oh, come on. But scenes that could have gotten cut in half here and there. And I think they took long routes to get to certain points they wanted to make in the film, instead of taking shorter paths, which would make for better viewing, I think. But all in all, it was an enjoyable film. It wasn't one of the greatest Herschel Gordon Lewis films I've ever seen. And of course, Herschel Gordon Lewis has to have that beach scene where girls are in scantily clad bikinis dancing around the beach, He loves women. Don't we all? But anyways, check it out if you want. Like I say, if I were to start off with a Herschel Gordon Lewis film, I would start off with The Wizard of Gore, The Gore Girls, 2000 Maniacs. Those are some of his best films. Blood Feast, in my personal opinion. The Gruesome Twosome, not one of his best films, but, he tried to, and he did start the horror comedy genre with this film. So, there you go. The source material was kind of rough, so I think the way you've seen it, what Arrow put out, I think it's the best you're ever going to see. It had a lot of scratches and tears in the film, a lot of dust, stuff they couldn't clear up, and a lot of issues with the audio that they weren't able to clear up. But if you put your TV at the highest decibel, you'll be able to hear everything. And none of it detracted from the actual watchability of the film. If you ever been to a Grindhouse theater, all you people who like Grindhouse films would really appreciate the print, albeit not a very pristine print. But I've seen a lot of Grindhouse films back in the day, a lot of VHSs, a lot of big box VHSs from back in the day, and so with horrible source material, so I can appreciate a film like this, you know what I'm saying? But anyways, pretty enjoyable film. Like I say, not the greatest Herschel Gordon Lewis film in the world, but I still got a good kick out of it, and I still enjoyed it for what it was. Oh yeah. But you will decide if you want to watch The Gruesome Twosome. Now, I do my rankings out of 100, 100 to 1, 1 being the worst, and 100 being the best, and I'll give it a solid 80, boom, because Herschel Gordon Lewis, baby, and I can't rate him lower than that. Oh yeah, but Like I say, not my favorite Herschel and Lewis films, but I did really enjoy it. Oh yeah, and I think you will too. Again, don't go in it finding the first horror comedy to be funny, albeit it was unintentionally funny. Oh, yeah. So check it out if you want. Check out the other BodyBags reviewers. Oh yeah, bring a lot of good stuff to the table. Every day's a new reviewer with new material, new stuff for you to enjoy. And again, don't forget to check out those late night horror movies. Read up on your latest Fright Mags. But don't forget to tune in to another episode of BodyBags, or I'll send Rodney after you. He's gonna scalp you. Later.